So as you're using this thing, primary muscle groups it's engaging: quads, glutes, biceps. I feel it in my biceps big time. You can change up your grip if you want. Your biceps even harder. Back of the shoulder, just like if you're doing a bent over row with barbells, just it would be very light. You're doing a lot of reps. Then mostly the middle of your back. Now, if you read the Concept2 literature / propaganda, they will tell you that this hits every muscle group in the known universe. I mean, it kind of does. Like, it's definitely going to do something with core and lower back, probably more so than abs. But to be realistic, I don't feel like this would exercise those groups as well as what it's doing with quads, glutes, back of shoulder, bicep, middle of your back, right? So those are the primary things, and maybe a little bit of lower back, because you got a little bit of a pulling action here. Abs, you can see that maybe it engages them a little bit, because at the end you do this, then you straighten yourself up. But for the most part, it's those big muscle groups I mentioned. Now when you fire this thing up and get it going, then this digital display clicks in. It'll show you like calories per hour. You can go ahead and choose different things to display on this thing. Like here, I think it's just really hung up on calories per hour. So this is strokes per minute, projected time for projected meters in 30 minutes. Things like that. Concept2 is actually really good about documenting all their stuff, and there's tons of videos. So I won't go too much into the features there, but here it's got a fan, and then it's got this thing which adjusts how much air goes into the fan, and you can adjust your resistance. One thing I'm going to say, there's just nothing more irritating than a person that takes this thing and turns the resistance up to 10. If you look at the Concept2 website, what they recommend is that you put it on this little line that's between the number 4 and 5. That's where it needs to go. And what you're doing is you're setting something called the drag factor. First time I did this, I set this between 4 and 5. Check my drag factor, it was on, like to the whatever the erg or whatever the drag factors are measured on. So just put it between 4 and 5. If you're using these in a club, be really careful. Most of the time, probably 9 times out of 10, when I go to a club and use one of these, some clowns set this to 10 because they don't know how to use these things. Set it between 4 and 5. That's where you want your workout to be. So it's got a chain attached to a handle, little thing for your feet. Strap your feet in. And then it's got this seat that you sit on, it rolls back and forth. So it's a very simple machine. Let me show you how to break this thing down, because you can't really stand it up with a normal size ceiling. So the way this comes apart is, there's a little door here, you open it up, and then it breaks into 2 parts that you can sort of stand up over in your closet or something like that. So here's the other part. And then when you go to put it back together again, you just reverse that process. So these are not that bad to store. If you don't take it apart like this, it's too tall for you to stand up like in a normal sized house with an 8-foot ceiling. So there we go. Now it's clipped in. Okay, so what are my impressions of this? Other than a treadmill, this was the first piece of exercise gear I bought. I love it. A lot of people will say this is sort of their foundational machine. It's the one machine they've got, and they use it like crazy. I'm going to say that's not the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I think these things are great. Now, one thing I will say, if you're going to buy a rower, don't mess around with any other rower but this. Concept2 is the only rower you should be buying.